Hey guys, it's Kevin, and this is my review for the season premiere of Finding Carter, Season 2, Episode 1, Love the Way You Lie, and I could not explain how much I was looking forward to this premiere. I mean, you guys know I love Season 1. I absolutely loved last year's finale. I could not wait for Season 2, and I'm so happy it came back earlier than expected. I thought we weren't going to get it back till the summer, but I'm pretty sure what they did is that Awkward usually comes back in April, but now the Finding Carter's around, they're going to put that in April, which is awesome because Awkward's ending, and I'm so happy that they put it back because this premiere was amazing, and it already feels so different from Season 1, and I absolutely love that. This episode was a lot darker than the previous few episodes that we've gotten, in season 1, so I was happy that this was a lot darker, and I definitely enjoyed that, and let's get into this episode because it was amazing. So I really didn't know what was gonna happen after the season finale, and I love the way it starts because we start with Carter. She's waking up from her drug sleep, and she's dreaming of being a little girl, and Lori's picking her up and running off with her, and we see the Taylor was actually left behind, which it's a really sad scene to see, and again, we see Lori's really creepy in the beginning of this episode because she's telling someone on the phone that Carter's fine. She's like, I have everything under control. She's fine. She says it's too late. The truth will come out. She asks the person if they're threatening her. She sees that Lori has a gun, and you can just see how terrified Carter is, which is understandable why Carter's so terrified in the situation. I mean, who wouldn't be terrified in this situation? I'd probably be terrified, but it was a great way to start the episode, and it really set the tone for the rest of the episode. So Max asks Gabe if he can call his dad, and Max is still in the hospital because I believe this episode is only supposed to take place a few days later, which I really like that. I like that it only takes place a few days later, and basically he wants to call his dad to ask why there's no news about Carter's kidnapping because he hasn't heard anything about it, and Taylor shows up and tells the gang that it's just a media blackout, and I actually think that's a good thing that they did that. I mean, it's really an example of there's no news is good news, but I can totally understand why they want news, but it's a media blackout. Basically, they're not going to say anything just because they don't really know what's going on. They don't know the whole story. She says everyone's just sitting, wanting to hear from her mom. She says it's okay. She asks if it's okay. Max says, of course. She says she knows they're broke up. And then Bird's like, you broke up? And I love that Gabe takes her to get snacks. I thought that was really funny. And Taylor tells Max that she's sorry, and I was very surprised by this scene. I thought they were going to stay broken up, but no, they actually get back together in this scene because he says he's glad she's there. She sits by him. He says he made a really big mistake breaking them up, and I really love this scene. And he says he was going through a lot, and she says that when someone shoots you, Max says she says that happens when someone shoots you, and Max says he still wants to be with her, and they hug, and at first it was like, I think this is too soon, but you know what, I love Taylor and Max so much that I'm okay with them getting back together this early. I really am. I love these two together. They only broke up because of a little fight because Taylor's being too demanding, but she's now learned her lesson, and I think that they'll even be a better couple now. I love these two together. I told you guys, they're my favorite couple on Finding Carter, and I love that we've gotten them back together. So that was great to see. That was one of my favorite parts of the premiere by far. So Elizabeth asks why they ordered a media blackout, but the FBI guy says he can't talk to her about it. He says she can't work the case, and she's pretty pissed at it because she wants to work this case. She wants to find her daughter. She wants to do whatever she can to find Carter, obviously. And he says she doesn't have the authority, but he says he does and tells her to go home and let them know if Carter or Lori contacts them. So I really felt bad for Elizabeth. I mean, all she wants to do is find her daughter, who has been abducted for the second time, and she has no idea where she is, what her whereabouts are, and they can't tell her anything. It really sucks, but I can totally understand why they don't want her to why they don't want her to be in the case, because it's someone close to her, and they just don't want her to focus on it, I guess. And I don't know. I thought that was definitely really sad, and I really felt bad for her. So then we see that Lori gets a glass of water for Carter, who's still pretty foggy. She tells her everything will be okay, and Carter realizes that she drugged her. She realizes that right away, and Lori says she had to, but it wouldn't hurt her. She says she just needed Carter to hear what she had to say. Carter asks what, and Lori says she'll know soon, and again, it's so creepy. Lori, throughout this whole episode, was so creepy, and I loved it. I really did. And I love that Lori's playing such a bigger role this season, definitely. I mean, because Lori, she was in last season, but she never was featured as much as she was here, and I love that. So Taylor asks Max if Carter would hurt Lori, and he says no, and I like that she asked that. I mean, if Lori would hurt Carter, and he says no, but he never thought she would do this either. But he says they shouldn't worry about it because, Carter is, this time that Carter was abducted, first time Carter was abducted, she was a little girl, but she's not a little girl now. She's a lot stronger, she's a lot tough, and she's smart, and he says that Carter should be fine, and I like that he said that to her, because, yeah, this is a very different time that she's kidnapped. I mean, she's more aware of what's going on, she knows more about Lori, and I like that Max said that to her, because it's true, she'll be fine. So Carter runs from her mom, and Lori chases her. She runs into traffic. Carter runs into the woods. Lori gives chase. She tells her to stop and tackles her. Lori says she and Taylor have to know the truth, and Carter asks what Taylor has to do. And when she said Taylor, I'm like, Taylor? What does Taylor have to do with this? And she clicks a selfie of them and says to send it to Taylor and set up a meeting with her. So clearly there's something else going on with Taylor, and Carter asks what, well, we pretty much knew that though from the beginning of the episode because when we saw that Taylor was left behind. So Carter asks why she's doing this and tells Lori to stop, and Lori tells her to think about them before all this happened, and she says that she loves her and that Carter is everything to her. And as much as that's great that they did have that bonding, it was fake. It was. And Carter can never Carter can never remember it the same again. I understand Lori wants to get that time back with her and that she genuinely loves her. I understand that. But you can't just ask her to get that time back because it's just too late for her to do that. It's just really inconvenient to her. I mean, your timing is really, really bad there. So I can totally understand what Lori's trying to do. It's just her timing's really bad, and Carter just can't think of Lori and her as that way anymore. So basically, she asks her to remember them, and Carter says she's not the person she knew, which this is understandable why Carter's saying this, because she's not. She's not the person she thought she knew, and Lori cries and says that's only because of the circumstances, and that it's not their fault, and it's not fair, and she asks for one last chance and begs her to do it, and Carter caves and does it, and I really felt bad for Carter. I mean, she's basically being forced to do this, and I think Carter just did because she's scared. She doesn't know what Lori's going to do, and she's really worried about what's going to happen there. So Taylor gets the text and tells Max and the others. She says she's supposed to meet them in 2 hours alone, and Elizabeth and the family talk about what to do. They really don't know what to do here. And David tells Joan they will decide who's going, and Joan's really upset because she knows that someone has to go, and he asks Elizabeth's parents to step out because they have to talk about this on their own. And David says they need to talk about Lori. This was really interesting, and again shows how suspicious David really is. Again, a lot of things he says in this episode, very, very sketchy, and I like not knowing too much about David. There is a big twist in this episode, but I definitely feel like there's more to it, and I'll get to that. But basically, David tells Elizabeth that they need to talk about Lori, and she says it can wait while they focus on what to do right now, and Taylor comes home and thinks back to playing in the yard as kids and seeing Lori pick up Carter and take her away while Taylor hid. And I thought that was interesting to see, and whoever plays Taylor, her performance in this episode is by far the best performance she's ever given in the entire show. Really, it was. I mean, I felt so bad for Taylor in that scene. You can see that she feels really bad for what she did. She wants to fix that, and she thinks about her sister in the car driving away because she just let her go. Remember, she was like 3, so she can't really feel like it's her fault, but in some ways she feels really bad about it. So she recalls the house full of people flashing photos and her mom asking where Lyndon is, and because, that's Carter's real name. Taylor comes home and tells him that she's going. She says, since she stood and this was an amazing scene. She says, since she stood in the driveway and watched Lori drive off with Carter, she's had to live every day knowing she couldn't help Carter, them, or anyone, which is true. And I understand that, I mean, she was scared. She was a little girl. She can't really blame herself for doing this. She was a little girl, and it's not her fault. But to Taylor, it is her fault, and she really feels really shitty about it, and I can totally understand that, but I really do feel bad for her, and she shouldn't blame it all on herself, and She says she dreamed many times about stopping her and says now she can do something. She can finally take down Lori, and she says again that she's going, and Kyle comes over and puts a wire on Taylor, and Grant comes in and asks what's going on. They think that putting a wire on her is a little bit extensive, but for something like this, yeah, you have to put a wire on them because they need to hear the conversation that they're going to have with Lori. That you need to do that. So Elizabeth says she's going with her, and Grant asks why the cops can't just do their damn jobs, and I agree with Grant. I mean, the cops aren't doing anything about this. Probably just because they don't know where the hell she is, they don't know where to look, they don't know much about Lori, they just don't really know what to do in this situation. I think that's really what it's all about, is that they don't know what to do here. I can understand that Grant's really upset, but he needs to understand that they don't really know what to do in this situation. So David says he won't let anything happen to her, and Grant acts like he didn't let anything happen to Carter, and Taylor asks Grant if he can go with, which is true. David did let something happen to Carter. He let her leave and didn't do anything about it, and a lot of this is definitely David's fault, and I like that Grant is very suspicious about David still. Because ever since he found out that information about David, he's always been very suspicious of him, and he still is, and everything that David says, as I said, is just very sketchy. So Taylor asks Grant if he can go with their grandmother to pick up Max and bring him here since his mom never showed up. And at the diner, Carter and Lori choose a booth, and she tells Carter to just act natural. And how the fuck would she do that? How can she just act natural when she's terrified and scared for life? Like, that is the worst advice she could have given her. And Carter says that she's not hungry, which is understandable. And Kyle says he'll be right outside listening. David drives Elizabeth and Taylor there, and they leave. He and Kyle in the car listening. They go inside, and Elizabeth asks if Carter's okay, and Lori says Taylor was supposed to come along, and says it's okay. Elizabeth will want to hear this too, and Carter hugs Taylor, and this scene was so awesome. You can see the look on Elizabeth's face. She wants nothing to do with Lori. She's like, get me out of here. I'm taking my kids. I'm going. Just leave. And it's such an amazing scene. And Carter's hugging Taylor and feels the wire on her back, but says nothing. Carter asks Lori why it was so important she had to kidnap her again. Lori says she's not the bad guy, which I can understand why she's saying that, because I feel like there's more to it. And one of the things that they are trying to do this season, they're trying to make it sympathize more with Lori. And I like that they're doing that, because Lori doesn't seem like she's the bad guy anymore. It seems like David is the bad one. It seems like David's been hiding something. David is the cause of all this. What it is, I don't know yet, but I definitely feel like David is the big cause of this, and it's not just Lori that is the cause of this. So I'm interested in seeing what that's all about, but I don't know what that's all about yet. So basically, we see that Carter asks what she is, and Lori says she's her real mother, and Taylor's mother too. They look at Elizabeth, and she has no idea what she's talking about. She asks her what she's talking about. She rattles off some facts about herself, and I'm like, how are you Taylor's mother too? Like, you didn't even kidnap Taylor. How are you Taylor's mother? It didn't make any sense. So she rattles off some facts about herself. She gives them like this date, 1997. She says, black hair, brown eyes, and we realized that Lori was actually an egg donor for Elizabeth and David. And a lot of people didn't like this twist, but I think it's really well done, because it really does make a lot more sense. And Carter asks what she's talking about, because as we know, Lori was a friend of Elizabeth and David before, and she always looked over Carter. So I can understand why she would do that, because she was their egg donor, and they wanted her to be part of her life somehow. So basically, she talks about how Elizabeth says that she could not get pregnant, and she says she and David tried for 3 years, but then they went to a clinic, and she says they looked for an egg donor, and Lori says they chose her, and Max tells Joan, and I thought that was a very interesting twist, and you can see how upset Elizabeth is about this. She never wanted to tell them about this, but because of Lori, she had no chance but to tell them, so I really did feel bad for Elizabeth in that scene, definitely. So Max tells Joan and Grant that his mom had the wrong date. He asks if Grant has heard anything about Taylor, so he's not leaving the hospital as soon as we thought, and he doesn't know what's going on with Taylor, and Grant asks why he didn't stop him, and says the whole family is with a crazy person and isn't normal, and he says Lori could kill them all, but Max says they're there with her, and it's okay. He's not worried about them. And I like that he's trying to stay as, sane as possible, and he says Carter's much smarter than Lori and is way ahead of her with a plan. He punches Gray and asks if he's okay, and then he says to get the nurse so they can leave, and I love their friendship. I've said it before, I love their friendship, and I thought that was a really good scene. So Joan tells Max he's good with Grant, and he says he's a good kid. Joan says she can see why Taylor likes him, but says all their women are bonkers, which is kind of true. I like that Joan said that, because it is true. So Carter asks Elizabeth why they didn't tell them, and she says they never got a chance to, and Taylor says they had a chance to tell her, which they did, and you can see how upset Taylor is by this. And Elizabeth says they didn't want to tell her without Carter, because they feel really bad about that. I mean, not having Carter there and telling Taylor, they'd be really upset about. So Elizabeth asks what they want from them, and Lori says she has rights, maybe not from the law, but because in her mind she is their mother, and she says maybe in the eyes of the law no, but in the eyes of God she does. Now here's the thing, Lori, you're crazy, okay? Even though I understand you're their egg donor, you don't get to be a big part of their life. That's just how it works, and there's definitely more to it. I definitely feel like there's more to this, because her being their egg donor, I can understand, but I just feel like there's a lot more that she's not telling them. And she says she just wants to be part of her daughter's life without the cops, and then Elizabeth says that will never happen, and Lori says none of them are leaving here. They all look around nervously. Carter asks if she thought they would walk away with her and live happily ever after, and Lori says they both know what it's like to lose a child and thought Elizabeth would understand as a mother. Elizabeth says she kidnapped her daughter and won't help her, which is understandable. I mean, she just kidnapped her and drugged her, so clearly she's a crazy woman. I mean, there's really nothing you can justify with that. There's nothing you can say that can justify that. Nothing. So Taylor tells Lori she ruined all their lives. Lori says they did, not her. She says she tried to contact them when they were babies, but they refused. And Elizabeth says that's the deal when you're a donor. And Lori says things aren't as simple as they sound. She says they are part of her and her blood. Taylor says she's not her mother and to stop saying that she is their mother. Lori says the only reason she feels that way is because she had the decency to leave her. And she says she could have taken Taylor too, but didn't want Elizabeth to lose them both. And Elizabeth says Lori will get the prison time that she deserves, and the whole time just like, put her in prison, seriously, she's crazy. Lori asks Elizabeth what she thinks she deserves, and Carter hugs her sister, pulls the wires out of the mic to signal something is wrong. Kyle then tells David to stay put, and he heads inside. Carter sees Kyle, then Elizabeth notices him, and Lori hits Kyle with the glass, runs out with the girls, and then we get the most intense scene in this entire show, because Elizabeth is literally fighting with her. This is such an awesome scene. I mean, Lori deserved every minute of this fight, and Elizabeth grappling with her tells the girls to run, because they have no idea what to do at this point, so they have no choice but to hurt her. I mean, she assaulted a cop, so what are they supposed to do? I mean, Elizabeth's a cop, that's what she has to do, and even though they told her not to get involved with the case, she has to get involved with the case. I mean, she has no choice, so Carter takes Lori's gun, and plus, she could have hurt Elizabeth. Who knows what she would have done? I mean, Lori's that crazy that who really knows how far she would have went. So Carter takes Lori's gun, puts it out of the way. Lori punches her repeatedly. David pulls her off. Lori hits him too, then goes running, and David chases Lori while the girls check on Elizabeth. David tackles Lori at the police station, and David tackles Lori. And that was such an awesome scene, and I love that. And that's so much more intense than season 1, and I love that they did that. Really, I did. So at the police station, David gives his statement while Elizabeth tells the girls she's okay now, and Taylor hugs her mom, who says it's all over and that they don't have to worry about this anymore. But it just seems too simple. And Carter asks what happens now. Elizabeth says she gets to take her home, and Carter says she meant about Lori. She says she'll spend the night in jail, then see a judge in the morning. And Kyle tells Elizabeth her FBI friend wants to see her, and Elizabeth is like, oh shit, please no. She says she'll be back, and she's really upset about what's going to happen, and the FBI guy says she can observe them talking to Lori, then says maybe the FBI should recruit more mothers, and she agrees and leaves. And I thought that was kind of funny because it just shows how badass Elizabeth, because let's face it, Elizabeth is a badass. She really is. I mean, she'll do whatever it takes to find her daughter, and I love that Elizabeth did that. And even though they didn't want her involved in the case, she still got involved regardless of what they wanted, and I love that. So Lori's being processed and asks Elizabeth how it feels living in denial, and Elizabeth says she's the one being fingerprinted and that she shouldn't be the one talking right now because she's the one being fingerprinted. So Lori says the egg donor deal isn't the whole, and this was very interesting, and again, makes me feel like David is hiding something big, and she says that the egg donor deal is not the whole story. She says she knows the truth about the egg donation. She says to ask David about what he knows about important things she'll want to know. And I'm just like, what is she talking about? Now, Elizabeth at the time just thinks she's some delusional felon and says that all she needs to know. And Lori says David did a number on both of them and says she's not the only one to blame. Now, what do I think is really going on? I think that David slept with Lori behind Elizabeth's back and told her to say that she was an egg donor just so it wouldn't be weird that Lori was actually pregnant. That's what I think was going on. And that I really feel like that's really what was going on here, is that Lori is biologically Carter and Taylor's moms because he had sex with her behind Elizabeth's back. That's definitely what I think is going on there. Because her being an egg donor just seems way too simple, and after she says that, I definitely feel like that's what's going on. But I don't know. What do you guys think is really going on there? Because I don't really know. So Elizabeth comes home with the girls, and everyone rushes to greet them. Joan is alarmed to see the bandage on her face. They tell their grandparents that David tackled Lori. Joan says she didn't think he had it in her. He had it in him, and I thought that was awesome. And Grant asks if he can hug her, and they share a squeeze. And Max asks Taylor if she's okay and says it's a great family vibe. He says he'll call his mom in the morning, but they tell him he has to stay, and he's now back to staying with the Wilsons, which I love seeing. And Joan says he said he'd stay and says to stop pushing, and later the girls clean up the kitchen, and it seems like everything's back to normal. And David and Elizabeth come in to talk about the egg donor business, and Elizabeth says the biology doesn't matter, and Taylor agrees and says what Lori says doesn't change anything. However, she is still upset at them, which is understandable. I mean, they could have told her and they didn't, and she says they should have told her, but don't ever need to talk about it, and she's really upset about it. It's understandable why she's upset. She goes to help Max and David and tells Elizabeth to give her time to process, and Elizabeth tells Carter that they want to apologize for not telling her before. She thanks them, and Carter says to be clear they are done with all, because she wants to know that they're all done with all the lies, and Elizabeth says that they are. She says there are no more lies, and she hugs them both. And then Taylor finds Max on the den sofa. He says the stairs are hard to navigate. She asks if he wants her to sleep down there too, but he says it's okay. They both need their rest, and he kisses her goodnight. I like really where they are, though. I mean, he's not being a dick to her like he was in the finale, and she's not being too demanding either, so I really like the path that they're on. But I just felt really bad for Taylor, honestly. I felt really bad for her. I mean, she's had the secret hidden for her for years, and I really felt bad about it. So Elizabeth tells David she's scared, but he says it's over. The girls are home, and Lori can't hurt them anymore. And she says Taylor is angry and distant, and he says she just needs time. And Elizabeth says she never wanted them to know, and says she was just going to take the secret to her grave, and was never going to tell them because she didn't feel she had a reason to, which is understandable. I mean, how can you really tell your kids that? Like, how can you say that? And she says they won't feel like she's their mother. David says she's the only mother Taylor has had and the only one Carter wants. There's nothing that will change. And I thought that was a really great line. I love how David is so supportive of her and everything, but I don't believe a word he says. So that's pretty much bullshit to me, what he says there. I can just tell that he's hiding something. You can just tell. So Taylor finds Carter in the bathroom and jokes about his hair being posted, this hair being her post-abduction look, and I thought that was really funny. Carter asks her if she will stay with her tonight. She says she doesn't want to be alone. Taylor agrees right away. They lie down by each other, and Carter asks again if she's okay. Taylor says nothing is what she thought, and she can't wrap her mind around it. She asks how can her mom not be her mom, and Carter says she doesn't even know what the word means anymore. And it's a very sweet ending. She says the one thing they do know is that they are sisters and nothing will ever change that. And I thought that's how the episode was going to end, but that's not how the episode ends. Because as they are snuggling closer, Elizabeth tells David that she saw Lori again before she left the station. And she said something strange. She says she knows she's crazy, but the donor thing was real. And Elizabeth says Lori said he did a number on both of them, and she wasn't the only one to blame. She asks what Lori meant. David looks at her and says nothing, and that's how the episode ends. And a look into this season, it looks like things are going to get fucking crazy, and whatever he's hiding is going to ruin their relationship, because we see in the promo that they're actually going to separate this season. Like, it's not going to be like last season where they fought and then just got back together. No, they're going to legit divorce, like, get separated this season, and that's going to be it looks like it's going to be an amazing season. I mean, it looks like Carter and Taylor are going to go through something, which I can understand Carter and Taylor go through drama. I mean, Taylor's now going to feel like Carter's more important. I can totally understand that. It seems like Crash is going to return, which it just looks like it's going to get crazy, but I loved everything about this premiere. Let's talk about what's actually going on here. As I said, I think that David had sex with Lori, and he's covering it up, and he doesn't want to tell Elizabeth the truth, because why would he want to do that? And I think that's really what's going on here. And I'm very interested in seeing what's actually happening, because it's just going to be really interesting to see what he's actually hiding from her. You can clearly tell that he is hiding from her that truth, and I don't know what's happening exactly, but I'm very interested in seeing what's actually going to happen there. Taylor. I felt really bad for Taylor, definitely. I think that Taylor, hopefully they can make this up to her somehow, but it seems like I feel like Taylor's going to be the most sympathetic person this season, really. I feel like we're going to sympathize with her the most because of the fact that Taylor has had a lot hidden from her and Carter hasn't, and now she's going to feel like Carter's more important, and it's not going to be stupid because in some ways they've acted like Carter is more important, and Lori especially has acted that way. Now, we are going to see Lori, I heard, a lot more this season, and I feel like they're going to make us sympathize with Lori a little bit more, but I really can't sympathize with a crazy woman. I can't. I feel like she's crazy, but there definitely is more to it than just her being crazy. I feel like as I said, David told her to say that she was an egg donor. I don't actually think she was an egg donor. I think that, or she was an egg donor, and David is just lying about some other things, and there's other things that are going on. And when she says David did a number on them, that totally sounds like an affair to me. That's totally what it sounds like. And I mean, it would be considered a double standard because, of course, what Elizabeth did with Kyle, but it still is not right what he's doing, obviously. So either way, it's wrong, and I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. I love where Max and Taylor are right now. I'm very happy that they got back together. Hopefully, they don't go through any sort of relationship problems this season. Seems like for them, everything's going to be okay, because I really do love those two together, and even though they did break up last season, I thought it was great that they got them back together in the beginning of the season. It was the perfect thing to do there. I thought it was amazing. But overall, guys, different my review of the season premiere. Absolutely love this premiere. This already, as I said, feels so different from season 1. This feels a lot darker. It feels a lot more like a thriller and a lot less like a family drama, because there's a lot more crazy shit going on. I love that. There's a lot more reveals. There's a lot more things we don't know about yet. There's a lot of things that they don't know about yet. And I absolutely love that about this season. I can't wait to see where this season takes us. What do you guys think of the season so far? What's going to happen this season? What is David hiding from Elizabeth and Lori? Whatever it is, it's going to ruin their relationship, because we see that not only do they get separated, but Elizabeth also goes back to Kyle, and that's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening there. Looks like something's going to happen to Bird as well. Crash being back is never going to be good. But I can't wait for this season. I can already tell it's going to be 10 times better than Season 1. They're already upping the ante of Season 1, and I absolutely love that. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for Arrow. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.